The world is full of problems. Individuals have problems. Families, organisations and communities have problems that need addressing. Sometimes these problems can seem overwhelming, and it's hard to know the best way to get rid of them. In order to address a particular problem, a good idea is to analyse it in more detail to understand it better and see which elements of the problem we have the capacity to address. A good tool for analysing any problem is the problem tree. This is such a simple image, but very effective, as simple things often are. The problem tree helps us to look at the symptoms and the root causes of a problem to give us a bigger picture of what we are dealing with. The problem itself is represented by the trunk of the tree. Then the root causes of the problem are represented by the roots of the tree, and the symptoms or effects of the problem are represented by the branches and the leaves. Quite simply, once you have identified the problem and written it on the trunk of the tree, the next thing to do is to think of all the symptoms of this problem and write them in the leaves of the tree, and then all the causes of the problem and write them in the roots of the tree. If you are an individual, you could simply draw your tree on a piece of A4 paper. If you are a group of people, you could take a large piece of paper and draw your tree and then discuss the symptoms and causes together as a group, maybe using post-it notes to put all the suggestions on the tree. A good way of looking at the symptoms of a problem is to think of a symptom and then say, "Then what?" which leads to another symptom, and so on. Similarly, when looking at the root causes, you can think of a cause and then say, "But why?" and that will lead to a deeper cause, and so on, until you get to the deepest root cause of a problem. So let's look at a fun example. Suppose your problem is that your alarm clock is broken. You would start by writing, "My alarm clock is broken," on the trunk of the tree. First, let's look at the symptoms or effects of your alarm clock being broken. One effect would be that you would get up late. So then you ask, "Then what?" Well, then you would be late for work. Then what? You could lose your job, and that would lead to a loss of income. Another symptom might be that your partner gets incredibly annoyed with you. So you would think of the consequences of that in the same way, saying, "Then what?" and so on. It is sobering to think what a broken alarm clock may lead to. Now let's look at the causes of a broken alarm clock. One cause might be that the battery is dead. So you ask, "But why?" Because it is poor quality. And why is that? Because you can only afford the cheap ones. We're beginning to get a picture of the symptoms and causes of the broken alarm clock, and already we can think about how we might address this problem. It could be that the cheap batteries are of false economy and you should get the more expensive ones, or else replace the cheap batteries more often to avoid the impending loss of your job and livelihood and the possible breakdown of your relationships. So that was just a fun example, but problem trees have been used extensively here in the UK and all over the world by community groups who are trying to solve the very real problems that exist around them. One big problem we have in this country is the isolation of the elderly. This is what a problem tree would look like for this issue. One obvious symptom of the elderly being isolated is loneliness, which can lead to depression and maybe even dependence on medication. Lack of care for the elderly can lead to poor health, which means more susceptibility to disease, which can lead to prolonged illness and maybe even premature death. And so, what are the causes of the isolation of the elderly? Well, one cause is that the extended family often moves far away because of better job opportunities in more prosperous areas. Another cause is apathy and loss of respect for the elderly, which is a result of a loss of family values due to an increase in materialism and individualism. A third cause is the decline of services to the elderly, which is a result of cuts in services due to loss of funding in local authorities. As you can see, the deeper the root cause, the more political the means of addressing it, and this might be beyond the resources of your community group. Sometimes a group only has the capacity to address a symptom, which is a good start, but it might be just a short-term fix. But groups of committed people can gain confidence by addressing symptoms first and then think about addressing root causes of problems, which can bring about more lasting change.